Hi there, Griff Hamlin here. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to get guitar tones out of a Les Paul style guitar. So you can see that I have a Les Paul in my hands right here. Now, really, by a Les Paul style guitar, to me, guitars basically fall into two camps. They're either a Les Paul style guitar or they're a Strat style guitar. And I know that's a huge generalization, but basically for a Les Paul style guitar, I'm talking about Les Pauls, 335s, basically anything that's got humbucking pickups in it and kind of a, thick, the thicker body. Les Pauls happen to be made out of mahogany by and large. There's a lot of guitars made that you'll see like ESP, for example, or Schecter. A lot of these guys make guitars with two humbuckers. They're loosely based off of the Les Paul style. They might have a Strat shape to the body, but really it's the pickup configuration, these guys here being the pickups, it's that pickup configuration that really has a bigger effect on tone than the shape of the body. The wood of the body, that makes a difference. Mahogany and basswood tend to be a darker, more pronounced mid-range, as opposed to on Strats and Tellys you often get alder or ash. Alder in particular is got less mid-range, more highs, more lows. Ash has kind of an interesting tone quality to the mid-range. So anyway, we're going to stick with Les Paul style guitars for this video, and I'll do another video for Strat style guitars for that style. So anyway, basically we have these two pickups, and this is what's translating the vibration of the strings into sound. So humbucking pickups are so named because you can see it basically looks like there's two coils, and that's in fact what they are, two coils of wire electronically fused together to cancel out the hum that pickups can pick up, interference from things like lighting, or if you're playing in a bar, the beer signs, the neon signs are terrible about creating this hum. So it's really handy to be able to get rid of that. Now, of course, in the process, the tone changes. For one thing, we get a much higher output. Humbuckers, generally speaking, are a much higher output than a single coil pickup that you'd find in a Strat or a Telly. The other part of it is they are not as, they're just a little bit warmer, I'll say, in general. A little bit more mid-range push and not so much of the high end that is characteristic of a single coil. So that's, in some ways that's great, in some ways that's not what you want. I'm not trying to say that one is better or worse, they're just different, and I just want to point out what those differences are. So the way a Les Paul works is you'll see that there are four knobs, okay? And we have a volume and a tone for the bridge position pickup, and we have a volume and a tone for the neck position pickup. Now, not every Les Paul style guitar is going to be laid out that way. A Les Paul is laid out that way, a 335 will be laid out that way. A lot of the, I'll say, copies or that other companies make, they have to do something different. So they, for example, might have a single volume control to control the whole guitar instead of having two, or a single tone control. We have also here the pickup selector switch. So in the down position, it's the bridge position pickup. In the up position, it's the neck position pickup. In the middle, it's both of them. So let's just real quick, let's listen to some of the differences between them. So in the bridge position, I have a louder, it's kind of more in your face type of sound, as opposed to in the neck position only, you can hear it's much more subdued. Now, if I use them both together, the effect, of course, is more subtle. You get a little bit of both. Okay? Now, take a listen to what the tone control alone can do. For example, if I'm on the bridge position pickup and it seems a little harsh, well, I can roll off the tone and it gets very dark very quickly. Same thing with the neck position. If I roll off that tone, it's almost non-existent. But depending on your amp, depending on the settings of your amp, that may be something that you need. If you have a particularly bright amp that maybe favors a certain guitar, and your Les Paul style guitar happens to be a little bright on that amp, you can just roll back on the tone a little bit. Now, generally speaking, I do run the tone controls all the way up. I don't play with them a whole lot. You certainly could, but I typically tend to make those changes on the amp instead of the guitar. But the guitar being the first link in the chain, it's a great place to try and make those changes. And it saves a lot of money because you don't have to buy a new amp. So right now we have, the only other control really that we have is volume. So obviously I can adjust volume. Now it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference on a clean tone. With an overdriven tone, you would hear it not so much get quieter as less overdrive. So for example, it's really not quieter. It's a little bit quieter, but mostly it's less overdrive. So for example, something that I like to do, I might leave the volume all the way up on the bridge position pickup, but when I switch up to the rhythm position or the neck position, I'll back the volume off quite a bit so I can kind of play rhythm here and then just switch over. So you can hear I've got two really pretty radically different sounds out of the same guitar just by flipping a switch. Now, of course, if I go to the middle, I'm going to get kind of both. It's not going to be less gain because my volume is all the way up on the bridge position pickup. So that's pretty much all there is to a Les Paul style guitar, at least as far as electronics goes. Now, there's one other thing that's kind of important that differentiates these from, say, a Strat style guitar, and that's what's called the scale length, which is the distance of vibrating strings, so the distance between the nut and the tailpiece. On a Les Paul, we're dealing with a 24 3/4 inch scale typically. On a Strat style guitar, you're dealing with a 25.5 inch scale length. Now, that might not sound like much, it's only 3/4 of an inch, but what it does is it creates a situation where you have more, this has less tension on the strings to get the same pitch that a Strat would have. So you might, for example, you might play 9-gauge electric guitar strings on your Strat, and then you jump over to a Les Paul and you put 9s on it and they feel kind of rubber bandish. You know, they're just really easy. That's because of that shorter scale length. So you may find that you prefer 10s on your Les Paul, but then if you put 10s on your Strat, you might feel like it's too hard. So you might have to change string gauge between the styles of guitars. There's also a little bit of a tonal difference. That's kind of hard to pick up. Some people can hear it, but I think it has more to do, there's a lot more other factors that come into play. If you had two Les Pauls that were exactly alike in every other sense, except the scale length was different, you might be able to hear that difference, but there's so many other factors that come into play that the scale length as a tone factor really doesn't matter. So that's pretty much everything that you need to know about a Les Paul style guitar. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll do a Strat one soon.